Story time. Got a story for you today, but a story with a, what do they call it? A moral to the story. But before we begin, hit that like button and subscribe. Check out my books on Amazon, Coming Back Home, The True Adventure of Mark Daniels, and The Power is Within. I know they will be helpful. I'm having a hard time. I breathed some dust on the job the other day and it's kind of making it difficult to talk. I know they will be helpful to you. Check me out on Instagram if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're watching it on YouTube, check me out on Instagram at Mark's Inspiration. Okay, the story for today was brought about by one of those little clips, the reels. There was a guy on there, he was an actor, talking about, okay, you guys out there, I know some of you have been burnt, and you swore that never again you would let that happen. And you've closed yourself off, you're not vulnerable, you're not open for any love to come into your life. And I understand what the guy's talking about, but I compare it to this. If you're looking at the fire and it's really pretty and it glows, and you stick your hand in there and you get burnt, you're probably not going to do that again. Now, does that mean you should never be with a woman again? No. But you need to learn something from that pain. Okay, the story time is this. Back when I was about 15 or 16, I took this girl out, pretty girl. Okay, and then, of course, I kind of fell head over heels with her. Probably one of the first girls it wasn't the first girl I'd been with, but one of the first girls I actually took out on a date. Of course, I did all the wrong things, which was get wrapped up in her. I vaguely remember what happened, but I do remember she dumped me. And man, it really hurt. And I was thinking I was good to her. I treated her good, took her out. I dated her like a real date. So I thought, I don't want to feel that again. Now, I would like to say I've never felt that pain again, but I have, and much greater than that. But I vowed to myself then, at 16, I said, I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm never going to let anybody get close to me again. Now, that was just in regards to women. And that served me well till I was about 29 years old. The problem with it was I mixed in a lot of dishonesty and deceitfulness. Now, I'm not telling you, and I don't believe it's wise for you to open yourself up to your girl like you would your mentor or your best friend. Because there's things that go on inside of us in the secret place, in our thoughts, that she really doesn't need to know. But you may need to share with your mentor or your best friend. Because sometimes these thoughts can gain power over us if we think them over and over again, and you may take action on them. And if it's something you don't want to do or something you don't feel good that you're thinking about, you need to share that so you can get a better perspective on it. So, as I said, that served me well for many years. And then I ended up hitting the bottom because of certain characteristics or character defects I had in my life that I kept practicing. And I went through a kind of a deadening period where felt like I was dying inside. And I came out on the other side, and some of you may have heard this story before, and I realized that I hadn't been treating people very well in my life, and I was very selfish and self-centered, and ended up by myself, which is right where I deserve to be. The word deserve comes from of the service, and I had been serving no one in my life except myself. So I basically threw everything away that I had learned in my whole life up until 30 years old, and decided that was all trash. Well, part of it wasn't trash, and the part that wasn't trash was the fact that I don't want to say you don't make yourself vulnerable to your woman, but you got to look up the word vulnerable, and it means to be susceptible to attack, to open yourself up to attack. It doesn't mean sharing your heart with someone. I mean, I can share my heart with my girl about how passionate I am about what I like to do, how I like to make videos, and that's fine. But if you start talking to her about, I'll give you an example. I made the mistake one time. I was thinking about my mother after she passed. And this has been the last 5 or 6 years. And I kind of teared up a little bit. in front of my girl. That wasn't a good, I didn't cry or bawl or lose it or anything. But now a lot of you guys may think, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it wasn't like my mom just died right then. It had been a couple years, and I was just thinking and talking about it to my ex now. And women just, they don't understand it themselves, but they see that as weakness, and they can't feel safe with a man that is open and vulnerable. Because if you're open and vulnerable to her, to attack from her, because that's what the word means. Now, a lot of people have tried to change the definition of that word, like vulnerability is strength. No, it's not. It's the definition is the exact opposite of strength. It's not strength. It's making yourself open for attack. It's dropping your guard. It's dropping your defenses. And I'm not saying you should always be on the defense with your woman. What I am saying, as a man, you need to know when and when not to share certain personal feelings. What needs to be shared with her, what doesn't need to be shared with her. Your life should never, ever be an open book to your woman. Now, if you disagree with me, think about this, and I've used this example before. Let's say you're married. My one son is so loud, I don't know if you can hear him. No, actually, that's my son, my tech man, Frank, on the computer. All right, I'll try to continue here. He's distracting. Excuse me just a minute. Frank, I'm in the middle of a video and I can hear you all the way up here. Thank you. So there you go. I'm not cutting it out. This is life on life's terms, real life. When you got 6 kids here, where was I? I was talking about vulnerability, and I don't know where I was, but many dating coaches are saying that you need to be vulnerable with your woman. You need to be open. Okay, so you need to be open for attack? No, I know where I was. So if you make yourself vulnerable to her, then she's going to look at it like you're vulnerable and open to attack from anyone. And is she going to feel safe with you? Now, this is all on a subconscious level. It's not like they're thinking this out rationally. It's a feeling. It's an intuitive thing they get. If you're with them and let's say your mom does die, okay, I'm not saying you shouldn't cry. And I'm not saying it's not okay to see, yeah, it really hurts me. It's kind of tough. But if you're going to break down and cry like a baby, which is okay, I think, if your mom died, you don't want to do that in front of her, because that gives her a feeling of insecurity. Now, there's probably a lot of women that would argue with that. But I'm telling you, I've had a lot of experience with women, as you guys know. I've been married 4 times. I've had one time made it 12 years, and a lot of those years were good, but nothing lasts forever. And in my other relationships, there were times where it really went good, went well. But the last 3 of those marriages that failed was because I was too open, too vulnerable, and too much allowing them to make their own decisions. Even when, now that sounds like controlling, I know, even when they asked me and they told me I don't want to decide, I would say, well, because I was in this new way of thinking, I didn't want to force or control or tell anybody what they should do, even my wife or my girlfriend. I've had more than one woman tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. But I thought, well, I'd say, well, you need to make your own decision so you can grow and learn from it. Well, as you guys know, a lot of you, women don't like to be accountable. I mean, we can see it in our system. And the justice system, women are never, rarely, if ever, held as accountable for a crime as men are. And the punishment is never as bad as the man's punishment. Men have always had more accountability and more responsibility. And that's one of the reasons, I believe, why we are more successful and we make more money. Because we're willing to do what we have to do to get the job done. And if we make a mistake, we own up to it and take responsibility for it. Great leaders are not people who don't make mistakes. They're people who are willing to fail to make mistakes. So back to the topic at hand. When I tried to be this way in my other relationships, it's like they lost respect for me and they probably didn't feel safe with me. So when I look back, and I ended up going through 3 marriages, it was some terrible pain. And as I've said before, you could call it karma, because my first wife, I didn't treat her well, took care of her well, but I was very dishonest with her. So karma, whatever you want to call it, but I believe it's all for a lesson for us to learn. Now, I'm not completely shut down with a woman. I can have fun with her, we can have a good time, and I could share that I like this or I like that. But what I'm talking about is becoming vulnerable with your woman. She does not want you to be vulnerable. She does not want you to be an open book. She doesn't want to know everything about you. Now, I hear some of these guys talk about, oh, my wife or my girlfriend is my best friend. Well, that may be, but your conception of a best friend probably isn't what my conception of a best friend is. And I'll give you an example of that. I have a couple best friends, and I can come home tonight, maybe I'm out working today, and I see or I'm going to a client's house. Okay, I'll give you a good example. About a week or two ago, I live in an area where I may not see a girl for a year or two that I would even have anything to do with, because the obesity rate in my area is like, God, it's got to be 95%, and I like fit women. Okay, so I go to this client's house. The kids are out in the yard. They run in the house, and I can't get in the house. So I end up leaving and telling the client that was actually taking me to this client. I was working for, the roofing guy, and they had a leak, so we were fixing the interior problems. So I called him. I said, I can't get in. So she called back. Anyway, long story, I went back there, got in the house, and this woman was fine as hell. About 32. She was married, though. I guess she was married. I'm sure she was. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. And I don't mess with married women. But man, she was fine as hell. So, damn, I lost where I was going with that. What is my point here? I hate when that happens. Where was I going? Okay, the best friend deal. I get off on a rabbit trail. The best friend deal. Okay, so now I can come home, tell my best friend about that. I said, that chick was fine. I'd love to take that girl. I'd love to be with her, whatever. And that's cool. But would I come home and tell my wife that, or my girlfriend that? I mean, maybe there's guys out there that can do that, but I think that would breed some insecurity in my wife. Although I think it's good for the wife or the girlfriend to know that you can have other women. I don't think it's wise to be coming home telling her that you saw this girl and you think she's just hot as hell and you'd like to be with her if you weren't married, etc., etc. That's may breed some jealousy and insecurity in her that you're not going to like. It may cause some controlling and her wanting to know where you are all the time. He's still yelling. I believe in competition anxiety for women. They need to wonder if they need to know that you can have someone else. They like it when other girls are interested in you. But I don't think that's wise. And other things, let's say you're out somewhere and you lost your job. I've used this example before too. And you don't know what the hell you're going to do. Maybe you're living week to week because you're just trying to grow, and maybe you had a catastrophic loss or something. You're trying to work your way out and you lost your job, which you don't know how you're going to get another one like that. Do you come home and tell your wife your fears? No, you don't. You come home and tell her you lost your job, but you're going to handle it and you got some good ideas. Maybe you don't, but you know they're going to come. You can't come home and unload that crap in front of your wife and kids, tell her you're afraid, start crying, and you're scared, you don't know where you're going to get a job as good as that. She don't want to hear that shit. It's up to you to be a man and handle that. Go talk to your mentor, your best friend. So all this is you need to be strong for your wife and your kids, and that's what she wants. She doesn't want some vulnerable, crying little baby. And that reminds me of a show I seen, Bedeviled, I think it was, where this guy wanted this girl so bad, and this lady was like a devil, and she gave him 3 wishes or some shit. And there was this woman he wanted so bad, and he heard her saying that she wanted a man who was in touch with his feelings, like a lot of women say, who could be vulnerable. So this devil made him into that. And so he's on the beach with this girl. Some of you might have watched the movie. And he's looking at the sunset. He just starts crying because it's so beautiful. And she's like sitting there, and then here comes the big bully up on the beach, kicks sand in that guy's face that was crying, and takes her away. Women don't want that crap. They may tell you they want men to be more in touch with the feelings, but then when you are, and they don't even understand it, they lose interest in you. So the moral of this story is this: if you've been hurt before, don't hate the women. I can look back, I see my mistakes. I brought it to that point in every relationship that ever failed, and I've walked away from many of them. All of my marriages I walked away from. I brought it to the point where they were, the last three, to where they were disrespecting me, cheating me, actually trying to get me in trouble. Some couple of them tried to throw me in jail because I wasn't leading correctly. And as I said before, I was 29 years old, or 30 about it was, I always led. And the girls chased me. I had a harem, okay? But there were some parts about that lifestyle that weren't congruent with what I really needed to be, which was honest. You can have that, but you must be honest. If you get into a committed monogamous relationship, you need to, and she thinks you're monogamous, then you need to be monogamous, if that's your agreement as a man. But now, if you get into a relationship with a woman, you're dating, it's none of her business or yours if she's seen other men. Now, if you want to get to the point where she may say something to you like they usually do, well, what are we? Then you can talk about that. But then if you want to remain polyamorous, if you want to keep seeing other girls, then you need to tell her that I'm not ready to commit. But if you want to stay with me, now this sounds selfish, but if you want to stay with me and be my girl, then I don't want you being with other men. Okay, now it's up to her to agree to that or not. Some people think that's terrible, but you're just offering your deal. If she accepts that and you can still see other women and she wants to be monogamous with you, then what's wrong with that if she agrees to that? Because men and women sleeping around is two different things. A man actually has to put out some effort. A woman just has to say, okay, it's just that simple. But everybody has their own choice of what they want to be in. And if you both agree upon it, then who else is to say anything about it? That's up to you guys. So the point I'm making, as a man, you should never ever get so wrapped up in anybody, even your children, that if something happened to them that you would be devastated for a year or two. And I've been there. I've been so wrapped up in a couple of my ex-wives and ex-girlfriends that and I left them because it was going to hell, because once again I became complacent and allowed it to get there. Anybody who's honest with you will tell you if they've had any kind of long-term relationships, they've experienced that, because it's a thing us men do. A lot of guys don't want to admit to that because they don't want to seem weak. Well, we all get weak and we screw up sometimes, okay? Some of the greatest leaders in the world. Caesar, who was it? Mark Antony? Or was it Mark Antony or Mark Antony and Cleopatra. There's a good example. Napoleon. They all got taken in by the seductiveness of a woman and were swayed off their path and became weak. These things happen. You must be cautious and be aware of that. So be careful what you invest emotionally in a woman. Do not invest too heavily emotionally in a woman. I mean, I like the romantic fairy tale idea too. That's a great idea. And this unconditional love, women tell you that you can get unconditional love. The only unconditional love you're ever going to get as a man, at least in my opinion, is from your mother, if you are fortunate enough to have a good mother. And maybe from your father. I love my kids. If they went out and killed somebody today and ended up in jail, I'd still love them. I'd still go visit them. We all make mistakes, right? Hope they don't do that. I don't think they will. Who knows? They got their own lives and their own directions. I've taught them better, but shit happens. The point I'm making is, I don't believe there is unconditional love in intimate relationships. Because if you're not taking care of your woman, she's not going to stay with you, more than likely. I mean, there are rare cases, but in general, you're not going to find unconditional love in intimate relationships between a man and a woman. You take care of her, she takes care of you. It's conditional. We are not that spiritually advanced yet, I don't believe. And think about that. Some of the greatest spiritual leaders of all time were not married, did not have steady women. It's easier to be single, it is, and just go out when you want to. I've got experience in both. I've been single now for probably 10 or 12 years. I was married for 10 or 12 years, and I was single for several periods between that, and married for periods between that. So very difficult to be married. I will say it's just more difficult. Now, maybe if you find the right person, or better yet, if you become the right person, it works out a lot better. That's what I would say more than anything, is for you to become the right person. But we are tempered by these situations where, as I told you in my past and my not too recent, or my recent past, that I invested too heavily and allowed myself to get too emotionally involved in a woman. And they don't like that, because they feel that pressure on them to be something that they don't have the strength to be. You need to be their rock. You don't need them to be your rock. Women are not as strong as they play themselves out to be. Okay, that's just the way it is. I don't care about this, the strong, independent woman. They're strong and independent, at least here in the U.S., because men have made it so they can be. Cut out all the infrastructure, let everything go to hell here. They'll be looking for toxic masculinity, as they call it. That's just the way it is, but they don't understand that, because a lot of them have never been out of the USA bubble into the real world, where it's very dangerous, very volatile, where things go on that they can't even imagine. They might see it on the news, but they're so far removed from it, they think it can't possibly touch them. Well, I'm glad it can't, and men such as myself and other men have died throughout history. Fortunately, I didn't have to go to war to make this for women, because we love women. Many of my views are called misogynistic. I don't hate women. I don't have a prejudice against women, but I know how women are, and I know how men are. It's just as simple as that. Women are not as strong as men. And men are not as nurturing, loving, and relationship-orientated as women. Why is that misogynistic? But whatever. I'm going to wrap it up for today. I hope you got something out of that. I probably got something out of it by sharing it with you. So take care. Join us tonight. No, that's probably join us on Saturday night at 6 p.m. for the Power is Within podcast. And if you'd like to get my help personally, marksinspiration.com is my website, and I have half-off consulting sessions in the month of September. Take care.